Hello and welcome. I'm Natalia França Rocha, Content and Conference Manager, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Vital Foods Insights Virtual Expo Asia. Today with us, we have Wei Moon Poon, Regulatory Affairs Consultant at Wang SJ Asia. She will talk to us about the regulatory requirements for skincare supplements today. If you have any questions during this presentation, please post them in the chat section on the right side of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end. Wei Moon Poon specializes in regulatory affairs for functional foods, food supplements, as well as cosmetics products within Asia. She first started in the industry back in the year 2000 and has now over 15 years of experience. Wei Moon has actively worked on product registration ranging from pharmaceuticals, nutritional supplements to cosmetics. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wei Moon. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and for those of you looking for the other side of the world, good morning or good evening. Thank you, Natalia, for the kind introduction. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Vital Food for providing this platform, which allowed me to share with you the regulatory requirements for the skincare supplements. Okay, with the growing consumer interest on the beauty products, that is the beauty from within supplements, you may come across certain terms like cosmeceuticals or skincare supplements. I also have an opportunity to work on quite a number of such products. Okay, before we even start to market such products in Southeast Asian market, for example, we first need to overcome the regulatory hurdles. Okay, for this presentation, I would like to share with you the 4 very important consideration factors when planning the regulatory strategy for marketing of skincare supplements. They are the product classifications, the permitted ingredients, permitted claims, and the pre-marketing requirements. To illustrate my points, I've used the 3 countries, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore, as an example. These 3 countries have different regulatory framework and also different processes for health supplements. Okay, let's start. Okay, I'll go through step by step. So first step, we need to understand the regulatory landscape. First, we need to know the classification of health supplements. So I often tell my clients that the very first thing to do when considering the regulatory approach for the products is to understand the classification of the product. As much as possible, we want to try to avoid products falling into interface, for example, between drug and supplements, as it will often make it difficult to go through regulatory process. Okay, in the past, when our work is simpler, our product is simply divided into 2 types. Food, that is to provide nutrients and accessible substances, and it will help to provide nutritional and psychological effect. Whereas for medicines, it's used for treatments and prevention of disease. But nowadays, our world is getting a bit more complicated. We have supplements which is presented in a pharmaceutical dosage form, yet they are taken orally, just like food. So supplements often fall into the interface of food and medicines. As such, these products are either classified as food or medicines in different countries. Here to show you an example. Okay, now some of you may ask, for skin supplements, it's used to provide skin hair and make it more beautiful. Can such products be classified as a cosmetic products? Okay, let me read you through the definitions. This is the definition that is extracted from the Singapore guidelines, which is adapted from the ASEAN guideline. Okay, the cosmetic product is defined as any substance or preparation that is intended to be placed in contact with the external part of the human body, such as the skin, hair, nails, lips, or mouth, including gum, teeth, and tongue, for the purpose of cleaning them, perfuming them, changing the appearance, correcting the body odor, protecting them, and keep them in good condition. So the key word here is the external part. It's used on external part of the human body. Whereas as you look at health supplements is consumed orally and is ingested. Therefore, health supplements, the skincare supplements are not considered cosmetic product. Okay, now let's take a look at the regulations of the supplements in the 3 countries. So if we can see from the table here, the classifications, the regulatory framework for such product is very different. So in Thailand, such product is regulated under the food regulatory framework, whereas for Singapore and Malaysia, they classified it under the drug regulatory framework. The terminology is also different. In Singapore and Malaysia, we call it health supplements, but in Thailand at this moment, we call them food supplements. Whereas for the regulatory agency, the agency that is responsible for regulating such product in Thailand is the Food Control Division in the Thai FDA. Whereas in Singapore and Malaysia, they are regulated by the drug authority. In Singapore, it's Health Sciences Authority (HSA), whereas in Malaysia, it's the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency. And when it comes to pre-marketing approval, both Thailand and Malaysia will require pre-marketing approval, whereas in Singapore, we don't need to do registration. Okay, here's a definition of the health supplements used in ASEAN. Okay, health supplement means any product that is used to supplement a diet and to maintain, enhance, and improve the healthy function of the human body and contain one or more or combination of the following: vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, enzymes, probiotics, and other bioactive substances. They can also contain substances derived from natural source, including animals, minerals, and botanical materials. They can be a synthetic source of any of the ingredients listed above in the 2 above. Okay, so health supplements can be presented in the single unit dosage form, such as capsule, tablets, etc., and they should not be appearing in injectables or eye drop. Okay, these are the current definitions that's used in the 3 countries. I will not go through every one of them, but I just like to highlight to you is that there has some similarity in terms of the dosage form, that it can appear in tablets, capsules, powder, or liquids, and the ingredients, and also the intended use. So you can see, for example, in Singapore and Malaysia, they are used to maintain or enhance or improve the healthy function of the body. Now, we move on to step 2. Next thing we need to do is to understand the regulatory boundaries. Let's look at the permitted active ingredients. Okay, I want to bring you back to these slides. Okay, so you can see from point A, B, and C, these are the ingredients that are permitted for use in health supplements. There are the vitamin, minerals, amino acids, fatty acid, probiotic, etc. So substance derived from natural source, and any of the synthetic substance of the above 2. So this slide is to summarize the accepted active ingredient in health supplements, mainly the vitamin, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, and the enzyme, probiotic, etc. So one thing to take note is that the substance should derive from natural source, and such as animals, botanical extract, etc. And then if you are using synthetic version of the natural source of the above ingredients, they must be proven safe. So for ingredients such as a single chemical entity that is commonly used in pharmaceutical is not allowed. So this slide is to compare the regulatory approach in regulating the health supplement active ingredient in the 3 different countries. For example, in Thailand, we have a permitted list of vitamin minerals, amino acids, and also botanical ingredients. For vitamin minerals, you are not allowed to use at more than 1 time of the Thai RDA. So any levels of vitamin minerals higher than that will have to be regulated as drug products. So for Thailand, they use positive listing approach. So any ingredient that is not on the list and you would like to use it, you have to seek approval from Thai FDA. Before I go to Singapore, let's look at Malaysia first. Okay, for Malaysia, there's a restricted and a negative list. So you are not supposed to use any ingredient that is found in the prohibited list, and also you have to use the vitamin minerals in place within the maximum levels. Okay, in Malaysia, there's a so-called positive listing system. It's basically a database of ingredient that has been approved, assessed and approved before. So if the ingredient you're using is not in the list, you have to seek approval for from the Malaysia MPRA to have it added to the list before you can use it. Okay, now moving to Singapore. For Singapore, we uses the self-regulatory approach. So the companies have to be responsible to ensure that the ingredient you use is within the maximum levels of the vitamin minerals, and they are not in the list of prohibited substances, for example, CBD oil. Okay. Next. Okay. Here is to summarize the the sorry. Okay, here to summarize the considered factors for the health supplements. Okay, for the authority to consider approval of the health supplement ingredient, you have to consider whether there is approval for other competent authorities, for example, US GRAS status, and is there evidence to support long-term use? And bear in mind that the evidence should be based on the same dosage, same concentrate, or extract that you plan to use for your supplements. There's, for example, even if your ingredient is extracted from the common fruit and vegetables, let's say if the concentrate of the active ingredient is 20 to 40 times more than the usual amount you take as when you take a raw fruit and vegetables, you must be able to provide the safety for the long-term use. In addition, you have to ensure that the ingredient is well characterized. Ideally, it should be documented in established standards or monograph. And one very important point is that the evidence of use as health supplements by the target user, for example, general healthy populations. So evidence from clinical study done on patients for treatment of certain diseases and conditions are generally not accepted as evidence to support the use of active ingredient in health supplements. Next thing about the regulatory boundaries is permitted claims. Health claim is very important for health supplements because it's an important tool for you to communicate the benefits of the product to your consumers. Okay, so but it's also very important that we know what kind of claims we can make. Otherwise, it may fall into other categories, such as drug, which is not ideal to most health supplement companies. Okay. This chart shows the summary of the permitted claims in each country. I'm using the ASEAN framework for claims as a guidance here. So um, the claims are the nutrition and health general claims, such as to maintain healthy body, functional claims, example, to help promote healthy skin, and for disease risk reductions. One example I can think of, which is a well-established one, which may not be relevant to skincare supplements, is the phytosterol, which help to reduce cholesterol, which is the risk factor of osteoporosis. And lastly, the disease and treatments and medicinal claims. Okay, generally, all countries permit the use of the nutrition and general claims and functional claims. In Thailand, they also have a list of possible list of nutrition function claims. So if you like to use claims that's outside of this possible list, you require approval from Thai FDA. Okay, currently Singapore doesn't allow the use of disease risk reduction claims, but you might like to know that HSA is currently doing the reviewer, and may permit the use of such claim in near future. So you may want to keep a lookout for it. Okay, and lastly, for medicinal disease treatment claims, all countries do not permit the use of such claim. Okay, as mentioned earlier, there's no pre-marketing approval in Singapore, so for substantiation of claims, companies are responsible to do self-substantiations. Whereas for Thailand and Malaysia, you must ensure that you have evidence to support the use of such claims. Okay, here are some of the examples of the acceptable claims for skincare supplements. So some of the acceptable claims include maintain healthy skin, support maintain normal function of skin, maintain healthy hair and nails, and antioxidants. You may notice the word maintain and support come up very often because you refer back to the definitions of health supplements. It's used to maintain, support, and enhance the healthy functions of the body. Okay, just bear in mind that all these claims, although they are acceptable, you're still required to ensure that sufficient evidence to substantiate the claims used for your products. Generally, the substantiation data should be from, is more preferred to be from the human clinical study reports. Okay, some of the unacceptable claims include prevent pigmentation disorder and anti-acne. These are considered a medicinal claims. Well, sunscreen and sunblock, as the word block implies, it provides a barrier to the external part of the body. So to me, this is considered cosmetic claims, which is not really acceptable for supplements. Okay. Lastly is the pre-marketing approval. This is very important, especially for companies who are interested in the multi-market entry approach. So you may need to know all the requirements before planning on which market to go first, for example. And for the regulatory affairs executive, you also need to know what are the requirements to register the product in the market. And also, it be useful information for you to do the gap analysis on the capacity of the company's information, whether they are sufficient to support the registration of the products. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the classifications of the product in these three different countries. Um, in Thailand, it's classified as a food. So when it comes to registration requirements, the document requirements focus mainly on the safety and quality as a food product. So generally, they require information like the certificate analysis, which shows the test result for heavy metals, microbial, etc. And the registration timeline is normally less than 6 months, depending if you're making a kind of claims. Okay. Before I go to Singapore, let's look at Malaysia. Malaysia is on the extreme end, regulates such products as drug products. And when it comes to the registration requirements, we required to provide evidence on the safety, quality, and efficacy. So you will need to provide evidence such as stability studies, reports, and also you will need to conduct assays on the active ingredients and to ensure that you are able to quantify the active ingredient throughout the shelf life. So in addition, they also have requirements for the product to manufacture in a GMP facility, GMP certified facilities that comply with the ASEAN requirements. As this is a drug products, registration timeline is generally more than 6 months. For Singapore, though it's under the drug regulatory framework, such product is considered as low risk product. So HSA do not require pre-marketing approval. There's no registration required. But having said that, HSA will still require the companies to take the initiative to ensure that there is sufficient evidence to substantiate the safety, quality, and efficacy of the products. Okay, here's my last slide. So to conclude, it's important to understand the regulatory boundaries before we consider marketing the products in Southeast Asia. First of all, we look at the selection of the active ingredient. We must ensure there's safety data for long-term consumptions. And the evidence of use should be based on the use as health supplements. Okay, so data that support the use by patients with certain diseases and conditions will not be good enough. Okay, and ideally, the active ingredients and compounds should be well characterized, and it's also important for companies to ensure there's well-developed assay methods to support the use during the stability study requirements. Okay, when it comes to the use of claims, one thing we must remember is that for health supplements, it's used to maintain, enhance, and improve healthy functions. So claims on treatment of disease, such as skin conditions, and cosmetic claims are not allowed. When it comes to claim substantiation, the study should be done on healthy subjects, and the claims should be on maintenance on health. Okay, study done on the patients for treatment of disease will not be appropriate and will not be sufficient to support the use as health supplements. And for companies who are consider the regulatory strategy for multiple market entries, you need to understand the registration requirements and timeline, and also to consider markets that have easier and have no marketing requirements first. For example, giving the 3 examples of the countries, I would say that we should try to go into Singapore first, followed by Thailand and Malaysia. Okay, given that we only have 20 minutes for the presentation, today I only go through the top line regulatory requirements. But after this talk, I'll be sharing my slides. And if there's any area or if I can provide you any assistance for regulatory strategy, please feel free to contact me at the contact information below. Thank you. Natalia, I cannot hear you. Your mic is off.
Okay. So thank you again, Waymon, for all of your great insights on the regulatory requirements for skin supplements. We do have a few questions came in from the audience, so we just try to run through those as time allows. And I'll just start with the first one. Are there any constraints regarding delivery systems when defining supplements for beauty from within, for example, topicals, liquids, beverages?
Okay, we have to back to the definition of health supplement again. the presentation form, it should be single unit dosage. So if you are using a form such as beverage, you are going into the food category. So it will not be recognized as a supplement.
Okay. And what are the safety standards requirements to prove a bioactive ingredient is safe?
Okay, the I would think that what's important, if you have evidence of approval by the reference computer authority, for example, US GRAS status, it will be very helpful to get approval in this part of the world. Otherwise, you may need to provide other informations like the toxicology data, especially the chronic toxicology data, since it's for long-term use.
And how stringent is the pre-market approval process in Thailand and Malaysia? What impacts has that had on nutracosmetic product innovation?
Okay, let's start with Thailand first. Uh, One thing we bear in mind is that for Thailand, food supplements are still regulated as a food. So when it comes to innovation, you are in a way that the restriction is when come to the ingredient selection. If you recall, during my earlier presentation, I mentioned that Thailand work on positive listings. If your ingredient is not on the list, you have to seek approval. So additional time will be required to get it approved. Whereas as it comes to Malaysia, because the product is regulated under the drug regulatory framework, and there's requirements for documentation such as stability studies of 2 batches done at Zone 4B, and also assays of the active ingredients. So these are some of the hurdles companies may need to consider while going to these 2 markets.
Thank you. And how long is the safety of long-term use data needs to be conducted?
Um, Currently, I don't think ASEAN has any, or regulatory authorities have any guidelines on it. So I would think you have to base on the international standards. Sometimes, for example, subchronic tox may be 9 months and above. Yeah. Yes, you just have to look at the international standard protocols for that.
Okay. And are conditions such as wrinkles or age spots considered structure function to allow claims or indicative of a health issue?
Um, so actually, for when it comes to claims, you just have to depends on how you're going to phrase it. So when you talk about spots, if you try to imply a pigmentation disorder, then it will not be allowed. So if you're moving towards, let's say, to maintain healthy skin or have a clear skin, the authority may be able to accept, but that have to depend on the evidence you have.
And what would you say is the greatest regulatory challenge skincare supplement providers face when looking to operate in Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia?
Um, Still, same thing is the first when you look at ingredients, you have to prove that the ingredient is safe for use for long term, and also um, you must have the ingredient must be well characterized. So from based on my experience, the authority often asks for assays, which a lot of companies are not able to provide. So companies may wish to invest a little bit more to studies on the active ingredient test methods. And the second challenge will be on the claim. So for claim substantiation, you must be conducted on healthy subjects, and the claim should be used as a health supplements, not for treatment of disease. So you may also want to consider investing on such studies instead of just looking at the disease states.
Well, thank you again, Waymon, for joining us today. Thank you also for
Thank you.
our audience for joining and participating, sending all your questions as well. As we have now run out of time, we couldn't run through all of the questions, so we encourage the audience to connect directly with Waymoon to answer any other questions that we couldn't answer now. So thank you. And our next session is our Beauty from Within Go-to-Market Considerations panel discussion. I'll see you then. Thank you again, Waymoon.
Thank you.